For the next part of this assignment, what we're going to do is we're going to create a bird that flies across the screen. Now, to do this, what I want to do is, and want to have you do, is create multiple birds that fly across the screen at a random interval. Now, what we could do is we could go to the timeline and manually put these birds in and create an incredibly long timeline to do so. But that gets it's a lot of busy work, and we want to avoid that if possible. So, animation's hard enough as it is without a lot of busy work. So we're going to use ActionScript to make it a little bit easier. I've created this bird. Now, if we drill down into the bird, the movie clip, you can see that it has two wings. That's the same movie clip done twice. And if you go down into that wing movie clip, you can see I used a bone armature to create the motion of this. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about how to do that. You've done that before. And if when you're creating your own bird, be creative. This is a real simple one. You can be as complex as you want. So as long as it looks like somewhat like a bird. Okay, now first of all, we want to give this bird a motion, but I don't want it just to fly straight across the screen. I don't want your bird to do that either. So I want it to fly along a path. Now to do that, we're going to go to the main timeline. We're going to take this bird and we're going to make it into another movie clip. So I'm just going to create movie clip. I'm going to call this bird in motion. And then I'm going to go into that movie clip. You can see a bird in motion there. You can drill down into movie clips just by double clicking on the object. Then I am going to create a new layer, and I'll call this layer guide. I'm going to make a guide for the bird to fly along, and then bird. I'm going to make this about 60 frames long. I'm going to add insert keyframe, insert keyframe. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to create a line. So I'm going to get my pen tool. I like to use the pen tool in drawing lines. I'm going to make it go straight. I'm going to have it dip about that far. And I'm holding the shift key to make those straight curves. I'm going to have it come up about this high. So it'll leave the screen higher than it came. I'll move this point over just a touch. Okay, so there's our guide. Oh, I put it on the wrong layer. So select that. Deselect the bird. By holding the shift key, you can select combinations. And I'm going to go up here and paste it. And you can see I have a blank keyframe. I shouldn't have created that keyframe yet, so I'm just going to drag this, hold the Option key, and drag it over, like so. And in fact, we don't even need that keyframe, so I'm going to hit Shift F6 to get rid of that keyframe. Alright, so in here I'm going to create a classic tween. And in the beginning, I'm going to put this bird right there, and it needs to be on the transform center. There's the movie clip center, and then there's the transform center, and it needs to be on that one. That little circle there, you can see it right there. Then at the end of the animation, I want to put the bird on the other side, like so. Now you can see it just flies straight across. Well, to do that, you click on the guide, Control click, make it a guide, and then drag that underneath the guide. And then you will see it now follows the line. So if we publish this, you can see the bird flying up and down. Okay, so we've got our bird animated and it's ready to go. Now, using ActionScript, you can see the bird here. I actually don't need it. I don't need to put it on the stage. So I'm going to delete it. Then I'm going to go up to the movie clip, click Properties. I'm going to export it for ActionScript, and I'm going to just call it bird with a capital B. Class names, you always want to have capitals. Instance names and movie clip names I usually put in lower caps. And variables also, you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. So there's class bird. Now it's going to ask you to make a new class and click yes. Then I'm going to go into my actions palette. You can see I've got one layer here with one keyframe. It's called actions. And I'm going to start creating this bird. Now we want it to be on we want it to come in on an interval. And to do that, you have to create a timer. So first thing I'm going to do is create a timer. So var, all the objects you create in ActionScript are variables. So I'm going to create a timer. Call it. See how I used lowercase there, lowercase t, because it's a variable. And I'm going to reference a class. So this variable timer is going to build off the timer class. It's going to be a new timer. You can see also it imported the necessary code to make the timer. And it needs some parameters. So I'm going to give it some delay. And I want it to be a second. So I'm going to say 1,000. That's 1,000 milliseconds. It runs in milliseconds. And so to have a second, you've got to do 1,000 milliseconds. And then the repeat count, I'm going to say, let's just start with a low number like 2 and see what happens. Then the timer's created, but I've got to have the timer listen for something for it to do. So I'm going to add an event listener, it's called. And event listeners are very common in ActionScript and probably one of the most commonly used code for events. And I'm going to have it listen for a timer event and for a timer. Okay. And I'm going to have it listen for a function. I haven't created the function yet, but I'll go ahead and create it and name it. I'll call it the timer function. Timer F, just for short. And close the bracket for the parameters. And then I'm going to tell the timer in the first frame to start. And remember, when you tell Flash to do stuff, you have to give it parameters, but the start doesn't need parameters, so I open and close curly brackets. Then I'm going to go ahead and create the function. Timer F, right? That's what I named it, and it's going to reference a timer event. And I don't want it to do anything on its own, so I'm going to void it. And that gives these open and close brackets. Okay, so then in there, this is where I'm going to create the bird. So I'm going to create a variable. This is an object, so it's going to be stored in a variable. I'm going to call it MC bird. And it's going to reference that bird class we created. And it's going to be a new bird. Now, you don't have to give it properties here, but you do need to give it properties. So we'll say, okay, MC bird, at your X value on the stage where you're located, left to right is going to be 300. And how coordinates work in Flash is they go from the left of the stage to the right of the stage with X values. And MC bird dot Y, so this is the up and down, and it goes from top to bottom, is 200. Okay. And then finally we need to add the bird to the stage. You do that by add child MC bird, the variable that you stored the bird class in. And that's it. Let's see what happens. Okay, you can see it's creating 2 instances every second, just like we told it. But I want it to be a little bit more random than that. You can see they're following the exact same path. So let's vary the Y value. Now to do that, I've got to create a variable that stores the Y value. So a variable Y val is going to be a number. And I want it to be random. So I'm going to use a commonly used equation here within Flash. And I won't go into a lot of explanation on this, but it's just basically saying that we're going to randomly give this a value. We're going to calculate it randomly by giving it with a math ceiling. So we're going to time this number, 350, randomly. So it will give us a random value within a ceiling. Okay, now we're going to assign that y value, this variable, to our y coordinates for the bird. Let's see what happens. See, it's more random now. Okay, I want more birds. I want a whole flock. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to give up this to 35. Now you'll see a whole bunch of new birds flying in all the time. But it looks like my y-val is too varied. I want them to be closer together. So to do that, open the Actions panel, and I'm going to give this a lower number. I'm going to say 100. Publish it, test it, and you're going to see them kind of come in on a more consistent, more like in the sky instead of near the ground. You can see though that my X is not varied. You can see them coming in lines. And so you can vary your X value the same way as you did the Y value. So I'm just going to copy that, go down, paste it, call it XVal, and I'm going to, let's go ahead and use the same numbers and see what happens. You can see them starting to come in at more of a random determination. But I'm going to, you can see they're kind of coming in too far to the left, so I'm going to give that a lower number. You know what, actually I think it needs to be a higher number because we're going left to right. So let's say 300. There we go, that looks a little bit better. Okay, and that's how you create some random birds. If you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to ask, and I'll be happy to help. If you want to just copy down this code, you're welcome to do that. Let me stretch it out here. Some of these things may be a little new to you, so sometimes it's just good to copy and then you learn as you go. So play around with this a bit, play with different numbers, different settings, and I'll look forward to see you're done. Your work when you're done. Thank you.